My guest in this 50th episode of the Misaal podcast is empowering kiryana stores to create a more unified consumer experience. His name is Jarrar Shah, and he's a co-founder of 24Seven. Let's listen in. Oh, welcome to the Misaal podcast, Jarrar. How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much, and excited to finally be on.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. I mean, I personally, I feel like B2B play, the retail space and, digitization and everything is the only play in Pakistan in terms of B2B and a lot of stuff that's happening. Let's start with an introduction. Please tell me a little bit about yourself and what problem are you trying to solve with 24/7?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Lahore, grown up here, went to school here, then did my undergrad from the US. Always wanted to come back, always wanted to build something. So I came back, but didn't know what to do. Joined a consultancy firm, a boutique advisory firm, was doing business development, management consultancy work. And then just, something like a new road actually opened up, which made my family agricultural land much more accessible to me. I could get there in 1 hour from Lahore. So I started going there and started thinking maybe I could do something over here over the weekend, something like a weekend project, but do something progressive. So I put up a tunnel farm where I could grow produce in the off season. And as you know, in Pakistan, food inflation is a major thing. And, every winters we have, even today, it's crazy right now, but we have, tomatoes and onions, prices going through the roof, and it becomes this whole political hot potato. I was growing tomatoes and I invested in A-grade seeds, got labor management, all of that, and we had yields 5 times normal. So I thought I was onto something and I could quit my consultancy and I could become the tunnel king of Pakistan. And I remember tomatoes were like selling for 100 rupees a kilo in Gulberg in the center of Lahore. And I bring my tomatoes to the mandi, and the first auction that happens, I get between 5 to 7 rupees a kilo. And I'm like, what is this? How can tomatoes be selling for 100 rupees right outside the mandi? And I, as a farmer, am getting 5 to 7 rupees. Obviously, all my dreams of becoming the tunnel king were dashed. All my forecasts, my Excel feasibilities went out of the window. I barely made money back, if at all. Actually, I don't think I made money back. But the insight was that it opened up this thought process that this isn't right. This doesn't make sense. And maybe there's an opportunity here. And it just led to this mission where if we could create an alternate marketing channel, not only would I create value for myself, but so many other farmers, but also consumers. And we've grown up hearing about, Pakistan is this agrarian economy, but you have farmer incomes not moving. And the market as it is does not incentivize farmers to invest in better techniques and seeds and inputs because there's no premium being paid. So I thought, okay, if we can create an alternate channel here, maybe that will get unlocked too. So that's basically how the 24/7 journey started, where I started a e-commerce online portal, 247.pk, where we were one of the first in Lahore to sell groceries and produce online.
So, since you started, I think you have added different kind of products, and one of the products is Apni Dukaan. Why did you decide it would be a great idea to do something for the kiryana type stores, help them brand their services or help them sell product?
Like I said, the mission had been to create this distribution, this new distribution. So that's been our holy grail. So we started off with a B2C channel. Online grocery, anyone could come online, register an account, browse our products, check out, and we deliver the same day. And we did that for 3-4 years till COVID happened. And then online grocery, like everywhere else, exploded. We were growing exponentially. But then what also started to happen was a lot of new players started to enter the online grocery space. You had Airlift, Cheetah, Food Panda. Every week there was a new player advertising, right? It was like literally Patthar uthao naya online grocer. It was that kind of, flavor of the month. So what we started to see was the distribution that we were on, all of a sudden, the unit economics were getting challenging. And customer acquisition costs started to go up. A lot of dollars were going after the same people on Facebook and Google. So we started looking at other channels then, at other models, especially out of China, Indonesia, to see how we could come up with a distribution which was capital efficient, scalable, and distinct. And the biggest insight that we had gotten from the B2C channel was that pre-COVID, 70% of our customers were coming from high-income neighborhoods, DHAs and Gulbergs. And after growing 5x and the user base growing exponentially in like 9 months, the data didn't change. 68% were coming from the high-income neighborhoods. So for us, that meant this isn't a very scalable proposition at this stage in Pakistan. It just limits you to Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. So the 230 million story isn't really there. So we started looking at other models. And we came across Pinduoduo out of China, and that was something that really fascinated us. And we thought, okay, how can we do this agent-led model? And that's where we thought, okay, in Pakistan, you can't just make an agent from scratch. I mean, you could, but it would require a lot of awareness and this whole orientation and training. You'll have to create something totally from new. What about this kiryana? Aren't they the de facto agent for the community in a way? Haven't they been buying for the mohalla in bulk for years? Haven't they been providing credit to the mohalla for years? So what if they could be our agent? What if we instead of creating something new or creating dark stores and having a fleet of motorcycle riders, what if we could partner with people on the ground with existing relationships and stuff, and go and upgrade them, upskill them, digitize them, and rebrand them to get our dedicated distribution, which we always wanted. So now what we call ourselves is a B2B2C player. We're neither B2C, nor are we B2B. We're using an existing business to get to the end customer in the neighborhood. And it's a win-win for all of us.
That's a very good explanation of what you do. And my next question is, of course, so when you approach a retailer or, a kiryana store, like what is that process like? Can you talk a little bit about like how do you forge partnerships with them? They might be a little skeptical, when you step in. Do they have a lot of questions? Like, how do you approach that partnership, and how do you convince them that it's the future? It's that this is where everyone is going, and they should get on board.
So it's not for everyone. So the kiryana owners, there are certain people. Some are open, some aren't. Has to do with age, but I won't say anyone older is prejudiced against technology. No, it's not. Some of them are open to it, but mostly over 50s, the owners who are in their 50 and above, they're not very amenable. They're more transaction-based, not partnership-focused. So they're like, yeah, just tell us what the rate is, what the best price you can give us. We are not interested in, inventory management, account management, ledgers, blah, blah, apps. We're not interested in that. So obviously, we've been able to now profile people and become good at identifying who would be an ideal partner. So we'd go into a neighborhood. There might be like 10 kiryanas in it. Our goal is not to go on board all 10. So a B2B traditional player would want all 10 to download their app and place an order with them, once a week or once a month or whatever. Our goal is different. We want to create a beachhead in that community. So we'll go and identify 1 or 2 of them out of those 10, and then develop that relationship, that very deep relationship with them. And it starts off with a courtship. It's a 3 to 4 month process where it will be transactional in nature, but you're slowly but gradually increasing the size of the transaction and the frequency of the transaction and developing a relationship. And then at the end of those 3 months, you're in a position where, okay, now maybe they can be an apni dukaan or not. And both parties then mutually agree to, go in that direction. So it's a process, but it's basically about getting to know each other. You can't do this on day one and go to a shop and sign them up and rebrand them immediately. We don't do that. We also want to develop a trust and see, what kind of person we're dealing with.
So since we are on the topic of retailers, let me ask you this. Given the current economic environment, what is one of the biggest concerns that they're talking about, or is there something that, like, what is the mood like? What is the sentiment on the street?
Inflation is a big thing. And I think another issue is supply chain. Prices are changing very rapidly. You have price changing 3 times a week, which is very, very disconcerting. But it's in a space where people have to eat. People have to buy groceries. So the demand is fairly inelastic. But it's very painful to see prices increasing this rapidly and this frequently. Then you have issues with imports. Obviously, the LC's letter of credit's not being given on time. So some shortages. But then you have local alternates and other brands coming up, filling up the space. So in that sense, I think it's been interesting that you see brand loyalty being tested. So you have smaller brands coming in and getting some space. So in that sense, it's been interesting to see. But the price change, it's tough for everyone, right? How do you forecast your cash flows, your inventories, when you don't know what the price is going to be in 2 days? Just to give you an example, with this, in February, there was this, very fast moving goods. 4 or 5 of them were just not coming into the market because the suppliers were waiting for the government to pass taxes. And that took 15 days. And all of a sudden, everyone was sitting on their stock, the suppliers, and they just weren't providing because they wanted to, increase the taxes, and that took 15 days. So that was creating shortages. So these are the issues that are happening. They're real, they're painful, but people are, I guess, coping with it somehow.
Since you also mentioned taxes, so let me ask you this. I have deep interest in taxes. So is there a point where when you offer your solutions, is there a hesitation on the part of the retailer to not digitize based on the this notion that if we digitize, we create a paper trail, and that means more taxes?
Most of the shops that we deal with fall under the threshold where the tax applies. So under a certain yearly turnover, the small kiryanas are not required to pay tax, right? So 99% of our partners fall under that threshold anyways. Secondly, since we're doing it under our own brand, we are paying taxes. So we are paying taxes on behalf of all these shops already. We're being deducted at source. We're paying the sales tax at source. We're paying the income tax at source. We're kind of paying the taxes on these people's behalf already.
So there is no mechanism where you can go and then reclaim that tax that you have paid, right?
You can claim it, but you won't get it. The claim will be standing for years and years, unfortunately.
Okay. So it's not as straightforward to reclaim the taxes.
We do things and claim things, but we never get a refund. Never ever.
Yeah, well, that's just that's just the environment.
That's the way of doing things over here. Everyone does. Everyone has claims, and the claims are in the billions. And anyway, it's a mess. But yeah, it's not something we know. So the good thing is that we have a simple and fixed tax regime for tech players, digital players. So for us, it's a very simple tax regime, which obviously we adhere to. So things work themselves out in the end.
What kind of impact do you think you have created so far?
I think we're very, very early on in what we're doing. But yes, for sure, it's an impact. You help these people, first off, get them access to credit. So we've developed this fintech product where we're able to credit score our partners, and using AI, we've been able to come up with a very fairly accurate credit score. Based on that, we now have financial institutions and fintech players able to lend to them through us. So we've been able to create financial inclusiveness through them. Through our digitization, we're able to offer digital financial services to the communities, like branchless banking, mobile top-ups, bill payments. So not only are we creating financial inclusiveness for our partner, but we're also creating financial inclusiveness for people, communities that are underbanked or unbanked. And by digitizing the transaction that's happening in the kiryana, we're now also able to credit score those individuals and households as well, and get them access to credit and other financial services in the future. So we're creating this ecosystem where our shop partners are their inventory cycle is getting better, right? So that frees up their working capital. With data, they're able to stock better. They don't need to stock for 10 or 15 days. They can have a just-in-time inventory thing going on with us. So that helps them to stock more variety. Again, that helps with stockouts. So that helps the communities. They don't have to travel further or be away without certain staples for a bit. So the income levels are going up, and the overall intangibles in terms of financial inclusiveness, better quality stuff, reliable supply, all these things are happening. So there's an impact. And then on the supply side, obviously, since we are creating this distribution, we're starting to now source for produce a little bit more from farms and get them better incomes as well. But it's a work in progress, and we're very, I'd say we're like chapter 1 of this book. There's a lot of stuff that we want to do, and we're on track to doing it. But we're a few things are going to be happening on a monthly basis. But definitely one of our goals is to impact positively the community and create sustainability. This is a big thing for us. The model has to be sustainable. The win-win situation has to be sustainable. And hopefully, with this little guy helping them, it's, and it's funny because you had this whole thing in grocery where you went from the mom and pop shop, the West went to these big box supermarkets. And now you see them going back to the corner shop or the neighborhood store. So you have like Tesco Express and Sainsbury Local and even Deliveroo having these dark stores where people can come in and buy stuff. So we're kind of doing that already.
So yeah, I mean, I know that what you have explained to me so far, like the things you have talked about, it probably takes a lot of people to get all this done, right? And I was looking on LinkedIn, and I didn't realize you had like 100 plus people working for you.
No, we're 500 plus in total, but obviously not everyone would be on LinkedIn.
Wow, 500 plus. So if it's 500 plus, then I'm just guessing here that majority of the people you probably interviewed and hired yourself. So can you tell me a little bit about, what is your hiring process like, and what do you look for? Because you're a mission oriented company, and like people have to really believe in what you're doing in order to come on board. So what do you look for in new hires?
Great question. I think it's that sense of purpose and mission. Obviously, we won't be the biggest paycheck. We can't. So it's basically having that sense of purpose, understanding our mission, and buying into our mission. And obviously, it's not very clear on a couple of interviews. You can't really gauge perfectly. But we've been very lucky that we've created an excellent management team that's all aligned, and they're pulling in the same direction. Obviously, as we grow, there is friction, there are issues. Listen, this is my first time around, right? I've never built companies before. So I'm constantly learning. And we were like, so in pre-COVID, we were 26 people, right? And when COVID shutdowns happened, we had to scale from 26 to almost 100 in 2 weeks. So obviously there was not much interviewing going on, and it was COVID and psychological impact. But we were the few businesses that were operating and at the front line, because we had to provide groceries to people and deliver. And we'd be wearing these hazmat suits and interviewing people. It was scary times back then. But obviously, come a long way from there. We've now got a nice HR and recruitment, talent acquisition department, and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it's basically about people who can think beyond themselves in the sense of having a higher purpose. So it doesn't even have to be what our purpose is. It's just there are people who have a purpose. They want to like do something bigger than themselves. Right? It's not just a 9 to 5 for them. So it's difficult to get that these days. I mean, with inflation and everything, obviously personal finances are getting squeezed and stuff. But we try to find people who can take the initiative, who don't need to take orders, who don't need to wait for instructions. So these are the kind of traits we look for and try to develop as as an organizational ethos and culture as well.
Building a startup is of course, it's very difficult, right? And it's your first time doing it, like you mentioned. What were some of the learnings that you had, like, early on, or maybe even right now, where you're like, I had an assumption about how things would work out, but it did not work out that way. And here's what I learned.
I think first off, you have to have an open mind and you have to go in thinking you know nothing. And if you have that attitude, then it's a blast, right? Because it's all learnings, it's all iterations and all evolution. Obviously, our journey has been constant iteration. Like I said, it started from a B2C platform and now we're like B2B2C, right? And it's totally different. We were able to do this in time, proactively, because we've always been data-driven and always trying to learn lessons from. So some of these are cliches like fail fast and all of these things, right? But for startups, they work. You have to be able to figure out quickly without burning through your war chest, product market fit, and even the right distribution, the right metrics. So I think if you can startup founders can identify the right metrics and then track those, they can take better decisions, they can iterate quicker. And I think we are an example of, thankfully, touch wood, that we've been able to iterate and learn constantly. And like I said, when we started off, we thought, okay, online grocery, we're going to be like Ocado and Amazon, and we're going to be like a $1 billion sales company in Pakistan. And we found out, no, only a certain segment is buying online, and there are reasons for that. And 87% of the Pakistani grocery market is still kiryana. 87%. There are reasons for that. And understanding that. So that comes with experience, but having the open mind and wherewithal to recognize that, hey, this B2C is not our mission. Our mission is to create that distribution. The mission was not to be stuck and wedded to our model. So that is something that I think is very, very essential for any founder. And then finally, having passion and having that underlying mission. A lot of people do copy paste, which is fine. I mean, that I have nothing against that. There are lots of successful companies out there. I mean, Rocket Internet's been a huge success, obviously. Others as well. But if you can have that passion underlying, that will surely help. It can't hurt, because it'll help you to persevere in a good way. You can persevere in a bad way by being stuck to a bad idea, but persevering in a good way, if you have that mission, then you're looking at the bigger picture, and then you're able to evolve and iterate and push through the hard times.
So before I let you go, one last question for you. Looking at the future, 10, 15 years down the road, where do you see the retail landscape or Kiryana store digitization, or just in general, like you mentioned, the 87%, like, do you see that, going down, going up? And how do you feel 24/7 fits into that picture where they will be driving certain changes?
First off, grocery overall is going to increase massively. You look at your population, 60% is under the age of 30. They have a very young population, and they're going to be fueling consumption like never seen before. So they're going to be obviously growing, becoming families and all of that. They're going to be eating more, consuming more, buying shoes, garments, all of that. So overall retail is just going to keep on increasing. Obviously, we're going through a tough patch right now, but people have to eat, people have to wear clothes, people have to go to schools, people have to go to hospitals, People will have to wear shoes. The economy has to restructure, but the consumption aspect will still be there. The retail sector will still be there because there are 230 million people. Like I said, 60% of them are under the age of 30. That's going to really ramp the size of the pie up. Obviously, the fastest growing segment is organized retail. That goes without saying. So you will see the emergence of these big chains like Al Fatah and Imtiaz, Jalal Sons nationwide. But the corner store will remain the cornerstone of grocery retail just because of the scale that they're at and the relationships they have. However, if they don't modernize, then those who will not modernize will fall by the wayside. Because, people will, there is this upward, there's this, what you can call it, this aspirational aspect, especially for young population. So you should be, so that's where 24/7, comes in, and we feel that in a way, we are creating Pakistan's largest neighborhood store chain. Right? It was like you have 7-Elevens in the world, you have Family Marts and 7-Elevens. We know, but we are creating that. So Apni Dukaan is creating that, but not from scratch, not on our own, but by partnering with the existing kiryana. And it's so massive, this space, that there could be 10 other Apni Dukaan type players doing this. It's so massive. So I think the kiryanas will obviously be there. But at 87%, if they're there today, I think they'll come down to probably 60%. But the size of the pie from today, if it's 100 billion today, in 10, 15 years, it'll be much, much bigger. It'll be $1 trillion plus.
Thank you so much for taking the time out and talking about 24/7 and what you're building. I know this was a long time in the making, so really appreciate you taking out the time and telling me your journey so far and talking about the story. And thank you once again for being on the Misaal podcast.
No, an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for what you're doing. You're bringing forth these stories, and it's very, very inspirational. And I really enjoy listening in and watching each episode. So congrats on crossing over 50. So keep going strong.
Thanks for listening to the Misaal podcast. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and will thank me by writing a review or sharing it on social media. Make sure you follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks again. See you soon.